Welcome back to Everybody Made Billions, but not us.
Yep.
A lot of
Yep.
there were.
I'm going to deconstruct every positive point that Microsoft made yesterday.
All right.
Throw me a stat that you think is positive. Like,
Net income
go ahead.
increased 47% year over year.
What did?
Net income.
Oh, that's positive. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the comments. So I'm doing a short takes about this, and here's the negative to it. This is like a rich get richer thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Big tech, right? Which is the biggest, most powerful, and least regulated set of businesses on earth, have gotten rich while our world was on fire,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's just no other way to say it. Amy Hood, I think it was, said that annual revenue continued to increase 40% year over year. That's not overall revenue. I think their actual revenue. Oh, no, I guess it was 47%. Continued. Like, this business was started in 1976. 47% revenue growth
Mm-hmm.
year over year should not be possible. That it literally should not be possible.
I just
So
want to. I want to read.
something is askew.
So what was Microsoft's overall revenue? It was
81 point something.
no, no,
81.4.
no.
Oh,
There were 46. So Microsoft did $46.2 billion
40.
in
I'm
revenue.
sorry. Yep.
Apple did
46.2.
81.4,
Oh, it's Apple is what I was thinking of. Yep.
and
Yep.
Google did, well, let's say
60 something.
62 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to get on the like anti-tech trade, but
Well,
these companies are quite literally making so much money, and not just revenues, but quite literally net income, like dollars into the bank, that it's almost impossible to compete with them. Because if Paul Thurrott comes up with the greatest idea ever, they can just throw money at
effortlessly.
it
Effortlessly.
without even
They could
thinking
take
about it.
1% of their most revenues and destroy my new business overnight.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not that companies shouldn't be able to make money. I very much believe that, but
Of course.
there's an upper bound where there's no possible way for a large company realistically to become a cloud company anymore, like to go build out data centers, because Microsoft, Amazon, and Google can just throw so much money at it that there's no incentive for Paul Thurrott to go build $3 billion data centers.
Falls into this category. It's crazy.
It is.
And this was the argument about Microsoft back in the 90s. Now it's a set of companies that are even more powerful. Here's the interesting thing about this of the big tech companies that reported earnings, because we didn't hear from Amazon, and I don't know when that happens. I don't remember, but Amazon will probably be, well, it's non-holiday quarter. I don't know. Amazon was over Apple. Remember the last time we looked at this? Google, right? Or Alphabet, 60, like I said, 62 billion in revenues, right? 80% of that comes from a single source, advertising. 80%. This is a one business company, and by the way, that business has nothing to do with technology.
Yeah.
That should freak people out. Apple, 81.4 billion in revenues. 49, they'll call it 50% of those revenues come from iPhone. No, that is down from, I think the high was in the low 70s, 70% of revenues used to come from iPhone. So Apple is diversifying, which is smart. And their business, their services business, their wearables, whatever that business was called, it was three things: wearables and some other stuff, accessories, is even bigger than services, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever, these are big businesses. They're diversified. And then what is Microsoft? Because anyone can tell me what Microsoft is these days? Microsoft is by far, I would say, the most diversified of the big tech companies these days. I know it talks cloud like that's all it is. But if you look at their three major business units, a lot of it's heading to the cloud for sure. But this is a company that is all over the map, And honestly, I think it's the safest bet in tech when you think about it that way, because if one of their businesses fails, the company,
Right, they've got three legs effectively to stand on.
Yep, they have 31. I mean, they, I think that's what's interesting. Apple is definitely like what we'll call like a four-leg company at this point, maybe a three-leg company. Google is a one-leg company, right? If Google is, it's like a unicycle. They're teetering. I mean, they made more money than Microsoft. It's obviously hugely successful. I don't mean it like that, but I mean, there's some real danger to this. And the danger isn't just to Google and its shareholders, it's to its customers. Because if anything threatens that single source of revenue, This company digs in,
Yeah.
and does bad
Squashes it.
things.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the problem with these big companies. It's what you said, just the sheer just abuse. Anyone else has a good idea, they can kill innovation, and are literally every day killing innovation.
Yeah.
Because innovation harms them. They have successful established businesses. They're not in the innovation business, even though they all talk about innovation. It has nothing to do with innovation. They're protecting markets. That's all they do.
The question, and I got posed this when I was in graduate school. We were doing a case study on just random, it doesn't matter. What are the fundamental questions of when a company gets to a certain size and they're not explicitly breaking any laws? I think Microsoft perfectly falls into this example, because
Right.
I think we could make very easy and good arguments that Microsoft's not really a monopoly. But if Microsoft were to be split up into 3 companies, more personal computing, productivity, and cloud, would the overall economy or society improve to a factor that is marginally detectable by even the lowest rungs of income? Now, what that means is, would society as a whole improve by having 3 separate entities that are competing rather than one conglomerate that is Microsoft? You can apply this to Google and to Apple, by the way.
My answer to that question, I didn't go to grad school,
Right.
is yes. And the reason is companies that are single giant monolithic companies that can suck off of the revenues of one thing to advantage things that wouldn't be able to compete on their own. That's what Microsoft did. This is kind of unrelated to anything, but I mentioned last week maybe, that I finally called RCN and halved my internet bill. No, we had brownouts of the internet service all weekend long. And it got to the point where I said to my wife, I can only assume that this is malicious revenge from some person there who said, yeah, let's screw with this guy's account. Because this service has been rock solid for 4 years straight. We have never had an outage other than, the lightning thing. And then I resolved that Monday morning rather, I was going to call RCN and complain.
Yeah.
But it was fine. And I had an hour-long meeting on Monday, no problems. I had an hour-long meeting yesterday, no problems. And I'm worried about this because of Windows Weekly. And I thought, and then we did our little thing, we did our 15, 20 minutes. And then that thing just froze, and I'm thinking, man, this guy, I don't know. So I don't know what's going on. I've checked my internet speeds; they're the same as they were before. But anyway, that could be antitrust. Yeah. So people are always looking for. Well, Microsoft doesn't have 80% market share in some market, or 90%, or whatever the number they like. And it's like, that's not how it works.
Nope.
There's once you reach a certain scale and you can impact markets in ways that would be impossible otherwise, you need to be examined, if not regulated. And companies that are as big as Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, absolutely deserve scrutiny, for sure. And I mean, there are just too many examples in the EU already. Apple, Google, definitely, and I think Amazon, where they've made this determination. You're harming to EU. They'll look at local businesses, local to the EU, of course. That makes sense. You can see where these companies kill innovation. And that does impact everyone. People always think short term, but I'm getting these services for nothing or for a very low price, and I like how everything Apple makes works together, or whatever it is. And it's like, yes, yep, those are benefits. But there's 2 sides to this conversation, and you got to look at the broader good. And it's hard to, I think, for people to conceptualize what could be happening if these companies didn't have a stranglehold on everything.
Here's a real interesting one. Well, there's a couple thoughts here. One, Microsoft just bought 2 security companies last week.
They're buying security,
and everybody in that market is like, now Microsoft's going to bundle this with E5, and we can't compete with that pricing. Here's another interesting.
What about all the other security companies they didn't buy? Yeah. Now what you've done is you bought one of my competitors, and you've made me irrelevant.
Yep.
Here's
another interesting one, and I know I'm going to get pushback about this because you and I talk about this a lot. But Game Pass,
right?
Name another company that can buy Bethesda for $7.5 billion, throw everything into a service for $14 a month, continue to invest billions of dollars, even if we know it might be making money, but the cash flow that Microsoft has from other businesses is supplementing what they can do so that they can eventually dominate that market as a subscription service. It's not that Sony couldn't do that, but the reality is maybe they can't because they'd have to invest in
they can't.
so much money.
The fact that Sony has already announced a partnership with Microsoft for cloud something, we don't know what yet, probably something that will compete with Xbox Game Pass or Xbox Cloud Gaming anyway, is all you need to know. Sony, unlike Microsoft, doesn't have this cloud infrastructure to fall back on that they can leverage for all this other stuff. Gaming never made sense to Microsoft as a business until the cloud happened. And then it was like, oh, look, we can leverage this thing we have. And yeah, I mean, you could look at that as a modern version of Microsoft bundling IE and Windows. It's the same kind of thing. Does it benefit the people who use the product? Yes, of course it does. I mean, and those are the very real things that Microsoft or others can point to as the advantages of what they're doing. Yes, that's true. But again, there's another side of that coin, and it's really hard. It's very easy to point to the concrete things that are happening that are good. It's much harder to point to the very negative things that have not happened because they were prevented from happening. So it's like you're trying to describe an alternate history. It's just a fantasy, but it's real in the sense that these things could have happened, or other things could have happened if Microsoft or whoever we're talking about didn't do what they're doing.
I mean, what it kind of sort of boils down to is if you get a product for free. I'm looking at Windows 11. Not that I'm saying that Microsoft should charge for updates, but as an example, when a company such as Microsoft can give you an OS, or Apple, as an example, gives you an OS, that limits companies being able to build a competing operating system and sell it for any amount of money. Netscape is a perfect example of that, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I saw something about this recently, and I think there's an interesting connection to make. Apple used to charge for OS upgrades, right? Not on the iPhone, but on the Mac. So I think according to the article, this is not my memory, but macOS Lion was the point where they finally just said, we're going to give this thing away. Windows 10 was the point where Microsoft said, we're going to give this thing away, right? Now, Microsoft is cagey about it, but the truth is it's free. It's everyone gets this thing for free. You could today with a Windows 7 key, you could you get it for free. You're going to get Windows 11 for free if you meet the hardware requirements. I wonder, what was the market force change that happened there? It's an interesting thing. There was a company called Neverware that was making the Chromium OS available on any PC, and Google bought them, and they're gonna, they're gonna give that away.
Yep.
It's an interesting. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just you reminded me of it. This did happen. At one point, these things were expensive, really expensive. Even technically today, if you go and configure a PC and you want to go from Windows 10 Home to Pro, you're going to pay $50 to $100 or more for that upgrade. But by and large, Windows as a thing, Chrome OS as a thing, all the mobile OSs as a thing, Mac OS, etc. They're free, right? It wasn't Linux, right? Just to be clear, Linux did not cause this. But I am curious, someone somewhere in marketing or probably in financial part of the company said, we could look like real heroes if we did this to our customers, but then we will also harm competitors. And Microsoft, you could make the argument Microsoft had to move to this model, and they did it quietly, like I said, maybe because Apple was giving away the upgrades for free. That might have been what triggered, so in some way, Apple was so big and powerful, they actually triggered a negative change at Microsoft, which is a big and powerful company, but not as big as powerful big and powerful as Apple. Anyway, I get this is sort of like trickle down economics, except it works.
I think one of the things that will potentially play into if Microsoft ever finds itself sort of under the anti-limelight or whatever, will be a company like Slack. Because could Slack have survived as its own entity? Oh my gosh. Oh, come back to me, Paul. I can hear you.
So I believe my internet is working.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is actually. It's moving very slowly. Yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah. Well,
I can't. This freaking company. This is the wrong day for this to happen to me.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not bringing up sites either. It is busy. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we'll call it a day, and hopefully tomorrow we can continue our.
We literally spoke not at all about Microsoft revenue somehow.
It's fantastic.
Sorry, everybody.
Unlike your connection. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.